video games are for nerds. But that doesn't mean we can't talk about them. That's why you're listening to The Week in Gaming, the only gaming podcast that breaks down the last 7 days and tears games apart from the inside. Ugh. So forget your worries, open your ears, and join Simon Miller and a co-host for the entertainment chatter you need. Also, screw Dark Souls.
Hello, welcome to The Week in Gaming. My name is Simon Miller, and thank you very much for joining me for a little podcast about video games that will last anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. I like to be specific. This is supported by patreon.com/SimonMiller316, so please do go check that out. Also, I made a nice little new trailer. Well, it may not be up by the time you hear this, it may be. If you go to youtube.com/The Miller Report Rules, where you can also hear this podcast, amongst other videos, I just did a little new trailer for my Patreon today, because as someone pointed out, Simon, I just watched your Patreon trailer, which was about from 2 years ago. You're like a different person. I watched it and I went, he's 100% right. So I went to change that as well. As always, my man Sam Bishop is joining me today. Sam, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Howdy.
Good. I tell you, I'm not going to say what, obviously, but Sam went to a super cool secret preview event today. I always like just dropping that kind of stuff. Just do. I'm that guy. It's called being an asshole. Yeah. I love bait, man. Look, you know what? That's a great. I wasn't going to do it in this order, and some people sometimes get mad for me for not putting what are they called, the links. People want the links in the thing to know where hyperlink. What the hell is that thing called where you can actually see what's going on in the show and click to the bit you want to see people talking about?
I know what you mean.
I can't remember their name. I would do them. I really would, to the guy that got really mad at me. I just don't have the time. I'm sorry, I'm an asshole. You have to hate me. And also it means I can do stuff like this. I'm going to change it up because you just mentioned what did you just mention? I've gone off on a massive tangent and forgotten. What an insane person I am. What was the last thing you said? You made a Tom Hardy reference, and I was going to segue into Venom speak. But now, you said bait, which obviously is the Mad Max thing. So I know. So The Week in Gaming, welcome if you first listened. We're going to talk about a movie. But look, let's face it. But the crossover between superhero movies and video games is not that far removed.
And I'm pretty sure the target audiences are very similar as well.
Exactly. And we had a huge chat about Spider-Man a few weeks ago. It's really interesting. And now Sam has seen Venom. I haven't. I'm going to see next week. But I've done a ton of reading about it simply because I'm fascinated by this movie already. As soon as I saw the interview, and if you don't know, this is from Tom Hardy himself. He did an interview where he said 40 minutes of this movie was cut, and it was the best part of the movie. And ever since I read that, I was like, right, Tom Hardy's pissed off. He's gone into I don't give a shit mode. Like, this movie is either going to be appalling or it's going to be one of those movies that kind of has this endearing, it's just so bad you can't help but fall in love with it.
Yeah.
And there may be some spoilers here as a warning. The movie's been out a week or so now. I don't care about spoilers. I'm just that guy. I'm going to go see it on Friday. But yeah, I'm just that guy. I just don't care about spoilers, especially for something like Venom. I'm not sure there's anything you could tell me which would enjoy or ruin my experience of that film. But it kind of sounds like we got on a time machine. We went back 10 years and we forgot about the Batman movies and all the Marvel verse. And we just went, we're just going to do a superhero movie like this.
Yeah, it's definitely like, I didn't even think about it, but now that you say that, it does reek of like Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, and like the era of superhero films where it was all wisecracks. Like there's a lot of that, and I think the biggest problem Venom had was it marketed itself. I didn't pay close attention, but I got the impression from the pre-release material that this was going to be a gritty origin story. Because it was all dark, it was all Venom is a dark hero, it was all gritty, it gave the impression that it would be sort of a dark origin story similar to Batman Begins, and the film is pretty much a comedy more than anything. And
of course it is.
Yeah, and it was just bizarre because I went in expecting Venom symbiotes, we're just gonna have a really dark origin tale, because the whole film, I don't think any of the film takes place at daytime, and Hardy in a comic role is just strange. Like the first third of the film is because the guy's called Eddie Brock, Tom Hardy's character. The first film can easily be described. The first third of the film can easily be described as the wacky adventures of Eddie Brock. Because when he gets Venom inside of him, he doesn't come out immediately. He just starts behaving oddly, and this isn't really spoilers, but like he gets really hungry, and then he's like, yeah, I need to eat chicken all the time, and it's like, whoa, that's so much chicken. Like it's not funny enough to be a comedy.
It sounds tremendous, Sam. You have no idea how much I want. It sounds like a train wreck. I'm a big fan of train wreck movies.
Now, I have to preface this by saying it's not a train wreck. It has a lot of stuff that's good, but they are good moments in an overall bad package. So it's just undoubtedly, I think it would be hard to argue that this is a good film. But it has a lot of sort of moments, if you know what I mean. I just think maybe it's the editing, like cutting out all that footage, maybe. Because there are points, because the whole point of time, Hardy and Venom argue in his head, because you get the Venom voice and you get the Hardy voice. And so there are entertaining moments where the Venom's like, let's eat this guy. And then Hardy's like, no, we can't eat that guy. And it does sound really cheesy and cringe, because the comedy doesn't always come off.
Well, no, it doesn't sound that at all.
Yeah, but like, as Spider-Man and Venom fans will know, like, Venom isn't all dark. He does have this humor about him, like we've seen in the games as well, and that does come off quite well. I'm not sure I'd base the whole film around that sort of buddy cop dynamic with a voice in your head, which seems to be most of it, because there's very few action scenes. There's big action scenes of Venom, but not a whole lot of them. So it's a bit of a mishmash, and there's a point in sort of 2/3 of the way in the climax of the film, I won't say what happens obviously, but it's a bit like Batman versus Superman, where there's a big old change, like U-turn in terms of people's motivations, and you're like, where did that come from? You know, the bit in Batman vs Superman, it's like, we had the same mums' names. Sweet, let's just change direction completely.
That to this day, the only rational explanation, one day it will come out in the wash, it will, but the only rational explanation I have for that is a bunch of writers sat around for days going, we've written ourselves into a corner, what the hell do we do? And someone just went, well, we could just say they both got the same names, and there was just this like collective sigh of relief. Oh yeah, that will do, who cares, the rest of the movie's bonk anyway, who gives a shit? Because that's genuinely one of the weirdest. It's not even bad, because to be bad, there has to be a semblance of sense first. And there's no sense. It's just, you can't even equate it to anything, because you hit the nail on the head. It feels like all of a sudden writing team number 2 came in and had no idea what writing team number 1 had done, so just tried to made it up.
Yeah, I would say it's as bad as Batman vs Superman, but in Venom it is pretty strange. Like, yeah, I won't say what happens. It'll be interesting to talk about it if and when you see it, or you do a spoiler cast or something.
Well, we'll do it next week. I'm seeing it at the weekend, definitely. We'll definitely do it next week, because after everything you've just said and all the clips I've seen with Hardy's, once again, another bizarre Tom Hardy voice, I genuinely think this could be an incredible movie. But not in the way it's meant to be, but it's just one of those things where I know when I'm done, I'm going to want to read. So this has happened already. I'm going to want to read everything about it, because I'm not going to be able to fathom how millions of dollars came up with this. Do you know what I mean? Smart people, you have to imagine, and this is all they could do. And Tom Hardy, right? I think he's won an Oscar, or if not, I'm pretty sure he's been nominated. It's like, the budget was $205 million. Sorry, $100 million. Sorry, that was the box office I read. $100 million budget, and they came up with this. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's got a very good credit scene if you're one of those Marvel guys, because I was with Marvel guys at the time when I watched it. Yeah. Which is good, I guess, but I guess that doesn't count for a review of the film. But Hardy is bizarre in it. Like, it seems like recently, especially with Peaky Blinders as well, he's very slurry, and he just sort of going through this film sort of like
yeah, he does. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, he's the same here, obviously American, and. A lot of people said he phoned it in. I don't think he phones it in, but I don't think the writing did him any favors, because he's trying to be hilarious, and Hardy's quite a serious guy anyway. If you ever see him in interviews, and the comedy doesn't really work amazingly well. But like I said, it's not a train wreck. I wouldn't go as far as that, but it's a mess. I would say is more accurate, because it's just jumbled, and those jumble is good moments, and I'd advise people to watch it, because people have come out and enjoyed it, so fair enough. I guess it depends what your expectations are, so just don't go in expecting a gritty horror origin story, because that's not what you're getting at all. It's the exact opposite.
It's bizarre anyway, because why are Sony trying to create a Spider-Man villain universe when Spider-Man is across the road? Do you know what I mean? Like, that is bizarre to begin with. Like, that's not a good idea at all. So straight away, you're already fighting against, and also you are about to, I'm not very good with Spider-Man villains, but I imagine if you're doing that, eventually you're going to get to some villains that nobody cares about. And without Spider-Man ever flying in to save the day, it's a bit like, well, what's the idea of this? So all around is just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, and it's just bizarre, because Marvel, at some point, they've got to be like, listen, Sony, you've had this license for ages. Can you just sell us this license? Because look at the ratings. Look at our ratings. You're not doing yourself any favors. And yeah, I just don't know why Sony haven't sold. Maybe they. Well, I mean, Venom made a box office record, right? So it's not like, who cares if it's rated badly in their mind. Like, they're like, oh, it was rated badly, I've still got millions of dollars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
that's true.
Yeah, I don't want this Venom or villain series to get cancelled, because it's interesting to see where they're going with it, and that applies to the credits scene, which I think a lot of Spider-Man fans will be happy about. So I don't want it to get canned, and I don't think with these sales it will get canned. But yeah, it might have a solo, like a Star Wars story that sort of cut the line for any other standalone spin-off films. But I hope that doesn't happen here.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's I don't know. The whole thing is just nuts. I mean, you could kind of call it, superhero overload, which I understand. I can respect that. I can understand that. If you look at that's why DC tried and failed to do what they did with all their movies, because they saw the amount of money and the amount of press and just the sheer excitement there was for all these Marvel movies. I thought, we've got to tap into that, and they really could have done, but for some reason they went in a very bizarre direction with it. I mean, I think
for some reason they made terrible films.
Well, yeah, apart from Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman I thought was a decent movie.
Wonder Woman's very good.
Yeah, yes. I liked that. Mostly because the casting was just, spot on. Whereas the casting throughout the rest has been, I think Jason Momoa's Aquaman is pretty good. I'll be intrigued to see what that film does at the end of the year. I don't really care about a Flash movie, but I know people love the Flash, so that could be all right. But Henry Cavill looked great, but he never really felt like Superman. And Ben Affleck, I think we could all say now, I'm not judging Joaquin Phoenix until I see him as the Joker, but given that we're on the other side of Ben Affleck, bad Batman. Just a bad Batman for me. Didn't work. Didn't like it. Didn't like it when it was first announced. Don't like it now. So I don't know what they're going to do, but I can understand, like you say, I understand why Sony's doing it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's working.
But I mean, like, money talks, right? And
exactly.
So.
Exactly. So, well, there we go. So we'll talk about Venom again next week. But yeah, as I did want to say, I wanted to talk about it anyway because I'm fascinated. It's one of these movies that is just, honestly, if you don't care so much about spoilers, obviously something may be screwed up for you, but just go read some of the stuff. You won't believe it. Or just read some of Hardy's comments about it. That is a man trying to distance himself from this, and we're only on number 1, and I'm pretty sure he signed up for a few. Or you'd have to imagine. And yes, I do know, because again, I was just looking around, going back to what you said about post-credit scenes. I know the actor that turns up, and when I read that, I thought that's very cool.
Do you know who he is?
Yes, yeah. Well, I had to go look that up too because I just don't know anything about Spider-Man. But once I read it all, I was like, okay, that's cool. Like that's a very, very. Again, I'm only getting obviously the surface stuff here, but that's a very, very. It's just very smart writing for the fan base that it's going for.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah. Like even I could tell that, and I'm not into that.
I can't wait to talk about it next week when we can do a spoiler cast.
Well, this is like a setup. So it's like a half review, and we'll review the rest of it next week. Yeah, and we're going in depth. So you got another week to see it. Should you want to listen to that? And just as a general rule of thumb as well, in case you're wondering why we just talked about a movie for 10 minutes, I did say a few weeks ago on my Patreon to patrons where I kind of talk about this stuff that I did want to introduce a few, like when big movies come out, I just think they're fun to talk about. I don't want to start a specific movie podcast, that's too much, but I think doing it within this one when it's stuff like Spider-Man, I think that works. I think that's okay. If you don't agree, you can let me know, and it'll probably happen anyway because I like doing it. But we will move on to games now. I don't even think it's out. It comes out tomorrow. But if you've got an early release version, you would have been playing it over the weekend, 4 days earlier. WWE 2K19. Obviously, just another year of WWE games from 2K, naturally, as the name suggests. I'm a bit torn on this. I've seen a few reviews, and I understand what people are saying, but I genuinely... it sounds weird to review a game like this, and people can roll their eyes at me. But... I know you don't really play the WWE games, do you, Sam? I'm 99% sure that's the case.
I get one every 4 years, just because it's fun to put people through tables every now and then. And
look, you just hit the nail on the head. Like, this to me, and again, I need to see what they do next year, and I know that's a very strange thing to say about a game that just came out, but this to me feels like the hard work of 2K ever since they bought the license in 2014 or whenever it was. This feels like the culmination of all of that. Like, in terms of the gameplay, the modes, the roster, the sheer amount of depth, the story mode. There is so much in this. It's as close to something like FIFA in terms of presentation and modes that it's ever felt like. There is something for everyone. Obviously, you've got all your exhibition stuff. They've got something like My Journey or the NBA 2K19 equivalent. I never played that one, so I don't know. I played NBA 2K18, but I don't know what the 2K19 one's called. But they've got that in there. They've got these towers that are like Mortal Kombat single players when you try and go through gauntlets. the creation suite, I stand by. I don't think there's a game out there that has a deeper creation suite than the WWE games. Showcase is back with Daniel Bryan. They've got buffs. They've got in-match buffs now called Payback. And I mean, I could go on like this forever. The checklist is genuinely really impressive. So, of course, the question comes down to what you think of the gameplay. And when it comes to WWE games, especially this WWE game, which, yes, we've had for a very long time, which is my point. I hope in 12 months' time this acts as almost like a getting off point for us to start doing something a bit different with the game.
Yeah.
But this is the problem with this game. I put a couple of thoughts out there, and people were surprised, going, "Oh, well, I didn't like last year's game. I can't believe this one's very good." And I felt it my almost like responsibility to say to them, "Oh, but I actually liked last year's as well." Now, I don't think they're perfect video games, and we can sit here and tear them to shreds for days. Like the commentary, it's just not good. It just isn't. The commentary it makes no sense because the NBA.
I always love the one side. I always love in WWE games because it's just so bad. It's good.
Honestly,
commentary usually.
I said that I did a review for VG247. I said in my review, if Michael Cole calls a suplex that didn't happen again, I'm going to start questioning my own sanity because I'm like, he must have done a suplex. There's no way to keep calling. But look, I don't mind bad commentary in games. I don't play WWE for commentary. Don't get me wrong; it's an important part of the package and presentation, especially when we're talking about real wrestling on TV. So you want that to come across. But what really irks me or gets me, and this is the only critical thing I'm saying because I do like it, is that NWA 2K19, and I'm sure 19 is the same, has great commentary. It's the same team. Why could you get one so right and one so wrong? But again, if you're playing WWE games just for commentary, I think something's gone awry. I think we can pick holes like that forever. But it's just the sheer amount of depth and the complete package here. And Showcase mode with Daniel Bryan's really good. It serves as a great way to introduce Daniel Bryan if you don't know who he is, or go on a little nostalgia trip if you do. And yet, you know what the game is in terms of from a gameplay point of view. I do think they've tweaked it and updated it a lot. The animations are loads better than last year. It just plays better. Reversals are reversals. I do 2K have tried to limit them in the sense that this may have been in last year's one as well. I can't remember all the little things they did, but they now limit the amount of reversals you can do on big moves. And
okay, that's good.
Yeah, it is. But obviously, you can still do them on little ones. But again, the timing of it, and this has been the way for years, has never been natural. It's always felt a bit squiffy, and that does divide and conquer. But again, I can sit here and say, look, I really liked it, which I did. But if you didn't like it last year, I can't, it may take a risk if you fancy it. But that is always the big issue with these games, is that a lot of people kind of had, they already know what they think about it, and then they dip their toe in anyway, and then they're surprised and they get mad. It's like, well, no, you knew. It's very, very strange. But I thought, I played it for a good... I don't know, close to 15 hours, I would imagine. I put a lot of time in. And I think the thing that I like the most, even though it does feel like a work in progress, is the My Career, or the My Player, My Career stuff, where you've now got like a fully fledged story mode with twists and turns. And, well, they say that all the WWE superstars voice themselves. John Cena absolutely did not voice himself unless something awful happened in the booth. But again, those things don't bother me. I didn't buy WWE 2K19 because John Cena was using a character. I actually found it funnier and more entertaining than it wasn't him. But I kind of like that. Like, it's a little bit slow. It's a little bit, like I say, finding its feet. Some of the dialogue options go on way too long, and the story feels very chop-changey. And the real issue it has, and this is me being a bit of a nerd, it can't make up its mind whether it wants to present wrestling as a sport or what it actually is. So it kind of treads this odd middle ground. But that kind of can be a bit finicky when... it's almost like it wants to appeal to the people, the younger demographic, that I'm sure no wrestling isn't, what it sets out to be, but doesn't want to push that too hard, but doesn't want to alienate people like me. I'd rather it just picked one and went with it. I wouldn't be offended if it wanted to. It's a story.
Commit to either side. Yeah,
it's a video game. It's fake. I don't care. You don't have to worry about stuff like that. But these, honestly, are genuinely minor criticisms. It is fun to play through. The towers are fun as well. Like that's probably where you get your major challenge in the game. Like, it's basically you go through 5-6 wrestlers that all have a theme. So the UK theme, and each one's harder than the last. And the hard ones are really, really hard. And to me, I mean, look, there's always going to be this issue about what do you do when it comes to a wrestling game? Do you make it a simulation, or do you try and make it like wrestling where you're working with your opponent to put on a good match? Yeah, Fire Pro probably does that a bit better. It does do that better than WWE 2K19. But it's much like the product of WWE in New Japan itself. They offer something completely different for everyone. And all the work that 2K has put into this series over the last few years, I really do think it's the culmination of that. I know I repeat myself, but it's true. I think it's a very, very solid wrestling game. I enjoyed my time with it. It will easily last me a year. I'll pick it up and I'll play it in the same way that I do FIFA. It'll be my game to just, distract me for 20 or 30 minutes every few nights. And yeah, I don't. It feels very worthy of the amount of money it's asking for. I mean, there are the whole VC things in there too. I struggle to talk about this because I understand the criticism, but I never feel a need to spend any of my money, so I can't personally criticize it. 'Cause I forget it exists. It doesn't ever get into my sphere of influence, but there's no point just talking about that in a WWE setting. We'd have to talk about everything. And maybe we will do that one day because it's an interesting conversation. But here I feel like I have to mention it, but I won't criticize it because personally, which is all a review is, it's a personal take on something. It doesn't bother me. But easily the best WWE game that 2K has released, and just a fun game in its own right.
Yeah, I still maintain that the WWE games are some of the best multiplayer couch co-op action like anyone can have together.
Absolutely.
Even if you don't like wrestling. Like I've had friends that don't like wrestling at all, and just putting them through a table is an easy way to get them, into wrestling, or just getting them to get you through a table.
No,
our ladder match is still a pain in the ass to play.
Well, yes, but I mean, the thing that everyone forgets about ladder matches is that they were also shite in No Mercy. But because No Mercy is considered the greatest wrestling game ever, everybody forgets that. I hated them then too.
I think they're just inherently not very good for video games.
No, it's like, how are we going to make someone to climb this ladder? But they can't climb too fast, but they have to climb a little bit fast, can't be too slow, and then we have to come up with some kind of mini game when we get to the top. It's just, it's too much. But I totally agree with you what you said about same couch multiplayer. I said that in my review as well. Like, it's just the best. It's just so much fun. And any time someone really beats you up and yet you still somehow manage to kick out at like 2 3/4, everybody in the room goes nuts every time, because it gets that wrestling kind of sensation down very well. Again, if you want me to be super picky, I still think there's too many controls, but I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there, Sam. I think that's just kind of how wrestling has to be. It's the same issues that the UFC game come across. It's just, how do we get all these little things that we want to do into a game? Well, we've got to figure it all out, and we just have to make sure there's something to everyone so that you don't feel like you can't do something you see on television. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, again, online is pretty good in terms of modes. I don't want to comment on that until I've actually played it this week, because last week it was great. But of course it's great. I imagine 30% of the actual amount of people that are going to go on there was using it, so they held up fine. But no, I really like it. I really, really do. I had a great time playing it. Again, the My Career thing is so ridiculous. The other great thing about My Career is it just makes it out like if you're on the indie scene, you're just a bum. That really made me laugh. But I think it does it in a tongue-in-cheek kind of way, so I kind of enjoyed that too. So yeah, honestly, I think a lot of people will play it and they'll kind of feel how they felt last year, but you know that already. Like, it's like FIFA or Pro Evo or Madden, or I could go on forever. We won't do that. None of these games really, really change massively at any point in time.
No, it's the same, because you're putting a different dressing over the same table. Like, it's really not going to change. If you don't like if you don't like playing WWE in games, like, there's very little that the game can do to make that acceptable for you.
Yeah, no, but I really did enjoy it, and I think Showcase should be a staple of a yearly WWE game. It's just why they took it out last year, I don't know, because there's so many different historical tales you can tell. I'm sure it's a big drain on the development team from a time point of view, but it's just easy. It's just such an easy thing to do. Like Daniel Bryan, you start on Velocity in 2003, you work your way through to the WrestleMania 30 main event. It's just nostalgia all the way. I'm just a sucker for nostalgia. Like, we had a wrestling event over the weekend, and it was full of nostalgia, and that made it work for me as well. So, yeah, I think it does exactly what it says in the tin. But I tell you, maybe next year I'll start changing my mind. I just get that kind of itchy feet for something different. But as of 2019, 2018, I should say, I am still a fan of it. What can I say? I'm still a fan of it.
Yeah.
There we go. Right, turning the clock back a year again before we talk about newer games. Sam, it sounds like you've been eaten alive by Breath of the Wild. Like, it has absolutely consumed you. Or at least that's the impression I got from our brief conversation earlier.
Well, I joked about last week about, next week I might come to hate it, and that's sort of true. It's not true in the sense that I hate it, but I've just come to the point where I was fine roaming the world, and I was fine exploring and facing low-level grunts. But I think the combat is far too weak for that. The actual tough boss fights.
I agree.
And it wants to be Dark Souls in a little way, and it wants to have this dodging system, but none of it is strong enough to the boss fights become frustrating because you're dodging in a really inefficient dodge system, and for some reason the shields sometimes bug damage and sometimes they don't, and you have to grind a lot because, like, I'm not being salty at the fact that I die a lot, but it's each hit from most enemies, especially the bosses, they do a lot of hearts damage per hit, so you need to grind a lot to get your hearts up. and frankly, I can't be bothered. So that's it for Breath of the Wild.
I'm glad you said that, because I feel exactly the same. That is honestly how I feel about it. Like, again, I think it's an incredible video game. I really do. I don't think it's a bad video game in any sense. And I'll put my hands in the air. I think Dark Souls is a bad video game. And you can yell at me. I've been yelled at me for the last 5-6 years. So it's nothing new, but I do. And I'm perfectly happy for someone to come call me a schmerl. That's all good. I don't feel that with Breath of the Wild, but I do feel like it's a slog. And that was what I loved about Zelda. The best thing about Zelda was the criticism that it used to get. I know we're repeating what we did last week, but I get passionate about this stuff. It was a hand-holding game without you realising it was hand-holding you. It pushed you down a line even though you actually had this whole open world and every dungeon was the same. But that's why it was kind of like a nice glove that I would just put on. But that's the thing with Breath of the Wild. Not only are you always fighting against the usual elements, but then your stupid flipping sword will break or the hearts will not be enough. And I'm like, oh man, you're just wearing me out. And someone got really, really mad about us talking about, I think it was either this or Assassin's Creed last week. I just want to say that, guy, thank you for listening. It's just opinions, man. It's all good. If you don't agree, you can just shrug your shoulders and don't agree. However, this is truly how I feel. It's just that after a while, I think I had exactly the same experience as you. I just went, I'm done, thanks. I mean, you're a great game, and I'm really happy that you sold so well.
Yeah, it's been a great time, but see you later.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. I'm just like, I had fun. Okay, cool. Bye.
What hour did you get to? How many hours did you put in?
I don't even know. Probably like 7 or 10, something like that.
So
I got to like one of the bosses because you know when you split off to 4 to find the Divine Beasts. I was sort of getting into that, but then I faced a big boss, and then the dodging was just so trash. I was just like, you know what? I'm done.
Yeah,
it's been fun.
I think we hit pretty much the same vantage point with that's not the right word, but the same limit, the same barrier. I just can't. And
I'm not like salty about it. I'm like, okay, cool. It could do that if it wants, but I am saying goodbye to it at this point. I had a lot of fun, but a lot of people seem to be like, how could you hate on Breath of the Wild, or like say with The Last of Us or anything like that, which I always bring up. It's just like, it's good. It's just not for me.
You're just a different human being. I totally agree. And some people forget that. I mean, I admit I do get annoyed about it, and I also admit I'm being a child. So I agree with the people that are getting mad at me now. Yes, I'm mad at me too. But like I said, I've said it 1,000 times. I'll say it once more. Won't be once more. I'll say it again. I just like the old format of Zelda. I mean, it was my favourite. I just liked it. I never got bored of it. Like, it probably could have gone on for the rest of my life, every game every 2 or 3 years, and that would have been good. And I actually respect Nintendo for what they did, because they looked out there and they did what I always implore developers to do, and they tried to embrace modern ideas that are working elsewhere. Unfortunately, I don't like those modern ideas. I don't like survival elements. I don't like weapons breaking. I don't like any of that. I like being treated like an idiot. That's what I like in video games. This guy's a moron, and I will play down to that as much as possible. But, I still think... I think they're done with the DLC now. I
think so, yeah.
Which probably means some point next year we'll see what Breath of the Wild 2 holds. Well, they even call it Breath of the Wild. Zelda's never really done that, has it? I mean, you never really got Ocarina of Time 2. I wonder if they'll call it, because Breath of the Wild now does feel like its own franchise. I don't know. I'm holding out. I really would like them to release a 3DS version. I don't think they will now, because why would they? It undermines the Switch entirely. But I'm holding out for the Switch to come like what the Game Boy Advance was for a while, when it keeps giving me those kind of Zelda games. But I think I'm not holding out hope for that. I can't see it happening.
Yeah, I can't either.
No. Well, there we go. So Sam and I basically topped out Zelda at 10 hours. Please do let me know in the comments, or tweet me, or tweet Sam. Let us know if you had the same experience. I mean, you can if you didn't too. And I love all of you, but I've heard from those people. I know you're there. I know you hate me. It's fine. But I would like to hear from the people that, have that similar experience. So I don't think we can be alone in this. The fact that we've both come to the same conclusion. Obviously, Sam, you've come after the fact. There's no like hype around it or anything. It's dead by this point. I think that's quite interesting, and I imagine there's more. Maybe I'll do a poll on my Twitter just for fun at SimonRadio316 that says, what do you prefer, old Zelda or a new Zelda? Just intrigued.
Yeah, I know for a fact I'm not going to say this opinion unprovoked, just because it's just like, because everyone will be like, Mwah! And then they're just like, So if anyone asks, I'll be like, listen, just don't be mad. But...
That's what I do. Yeah, preface it. Always preface it. But look, as I always say, opinions make the world go round. I think the best thing to have is a kind of debate. We just got to make sure the debate doesn't tip over into yelling. Yeah, exactly. That's what's missing from not just games, everything, wrestling, movies. The internet basically ruins that. But hey ho. Moving on to brand new video games, one of which also came out on Friday, Assassin's Creed Origins. Odyssey, sorry. Odyssey. Origins was the one. I made a video about this. You go to youtube.com/The Mirror Report Rules to see my video where I take the mick out of very that. And it was basically based on my own confusion. I've said that every single time. Well, I mean, in short, it didn't sell as well as last year's. I mean, that's the kind of the long and the short. It did not. You said that like I thought that was the case, Sam. Now I feel like wait a minute. Now I got to look it up. I thought that was
it's because I've only heard good things, and that surprised me. So now I'm back surprised the other way that it didn't sell well.
No, it's real. I think it sold well, just compared to last year's, and this is why I wanted to mention it. So the exact thing that I'm reading, this is on multiple websites. Assassin's Creed Odyssey has debuted in second place on the UK all format chart. I admit, but though physical sales, and I know digital's getting bigger, but I still don't think it counts for the majority. Physical sales are down 25% over its 2017 predecessor.
Okay.
Now, I found that interesting because, again, I will say, just in case I want to missed it, which happens sometimes, I know digital sales are not taken into that. I'm still of the ilk that digital sales, while make up a good percentage, are not the overall percentage, and I would imagine that physical sales are still a good indicator of what it will do overall. Just my opinion, could be wrong. Please throw information at me that proves that if I am. But the thing I find fascinating about that is that Ubisoft took a risk with last year's one, or so it seemed, when they took 2 years off after Syndicate, I believe was 2015, whenever. So they took 2016 off, came back in 2017. And again, it wasn't enough to win people like me back, even though they said it was a different experience, because I could see from videos and marketing and hype, it was the same, and I don't really like Assassin's Creed games. But clearly they thought they were onto something and went back to their old model of, okay, well now we'll release another one. Now I could be wrong, and it could come out tomorrow that digital sales are amazing and this has completely changed the digital sphere of games. But I don't believe that. And I just think, have we got to, this was, I think, because everyone's saying about WWE. It's different with sports games, but you can still throw them all in there. I just didn't know whether we've got to a point now where games like this should reconsider being a yearly release. Now, I get it, they will lose money, because even if it sells less, it's better than not releasing anything at all. I'm sure they've got it down now, Assassin's Creed, to the point where I know the development's a lot of hard work, but the cost of development, I'm sure, is down compared to it was 3-4 years ago when they were first making games for the Xbox One and PS4. But in quality-wise, I mean, what number is this? 10? Like, I don't actually...
It's got to be above 10 now.
Eventually, you can't... And I get it. Call of Duty is the... And I'm intrigued to see what Call of Duty does this year, given that it's got, it's sniffing around... Red Dead Redemption 2. But eventually you've got to go, okay, we have to come up with something different. But my thought being, the reason I'm bringing this up is I can't see Ubisoft ever doing it. I can't see Ubisoft ever going, we'll go back to that usual thing of, one Assassin's Creed comes out now and you won't get the next one for 2022 to, try and build some form of, absence makes the heart go fonder.
Yeah, I think everyone would be like, yay, but they wouldn't do that. I don't think.
No, I can't see it at all. So I'm just trying to find... how this is the problem. There's so many I'll go main series. So the main series, this is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And that's just the main series.
And then you got the Chronicle. No, the mini ones with India and stuff like that.
You got Liberation, Chronicles, Bloodlines, Discovery, Multiplayer Rearmed, Pirates, Memories, Identity, Legacy, Utopia. Like, that's all of them. The Ezio Collection, the America's Heritage. I mean, and look, you can shit out games as much as you want. It has nothing to do with me. Good for you. I respect you. All the best. But I just don't know if we're getting to a tipping point. And I get it. Loads of people said this about Call of Duty, 4 years ago? Oh, it's tipping. It's going to die. And it didn't. Call of Duty manages to sell loads. It kind of shifts around in terms of how much it does, but it's still around. It's still the biggest game, or at least one of the biggest games. But I just feel like Assassin's Creed's a bit different. I don't know why. What I mean by that, I think because you can play Call of Duty a bit like FIFA, right? It can be a bit like a dose of heroin. That quick kind of, I don't know, but I don't think you can play Assassin's Creed like that, right? Assassin's Creed is a sit down, give it some time, invest some of your life in it, right? You can't they don't do multiplayer anymore, do they? They got killed.
No, they don't. Oh, that was trash anyway.
It was, I mean, that's why I always thought they tried to release multiplayer for that. Because, if you get the multiplayer thing, and like I say, it's like a shot of drugs. You sit down, you play for half an hour, you put it down, then next day, I want to do it again. You don't get that with open world RPGs. You get a more kind of soothing, long, isn't this great to explore this world?
Yeah.
And I will mention this too. Again, I haven't played it, but it's not fair that I don't mention it here. Yes, and we'll have to do an episode about microtransactions, because the only criticism I see with Odyssey is apparently, and I don't know this, I'm reading this as second-hand information. I don't know whether you've heard anything, Sam, but I'm hearing there's a huge reliance on grinding just because they've introduced microtransactions, which means eventually you have to go, well, I'm going to have to buy some shit, which secretly makes me laugh because it's so, like, you know, Western corporation. But, I mean, if that is true, then no, that's not cool.
Yeah, I've not heard anything about that, so...
What do you think that if you were Ubisoft, what do you do in 2019? I'm sure they're already working on a new game. Do you continue on with it? Do you just go, who cares about 25% down? We're still making cash. I mean, what's the... Yeah, you have the power. What do you do?
I don't know. I think you got to do a trilogy for the Ancient Worlds. I think that's what they're going to do. So I think they take it to Rome, maybe.
They just got to change the whole thing for me.
I just think like it would have been best for everyone if Origins had fallen flat on its ass, and they would have been like, okay, we pumped some life to the series, and it fell flat again. I think it would have been canned. But it was sort of the worst thing because it's like, right, they want more of the same now, and everyone's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah. No, Origins was a breath of fresh air. We don't want more of Origins. That's not the point. But I think that might be what happens.
It's crazy that we live in that world now. Do you remember when we used to get a video game and you waited 5 years and you got another one and it was all different and things had changed?
Yeah.
And it's weird that how something like Assassin's Creed does that. I know that Gears is different because it's singular console, but it's weird that Assassin's Creed does that, but Gears doesn't. Or, I don't know, what else? I can't think of anything now. But you know what I mean? I just find that fascinating that we now have these big third-party games that are annually, and really... I mean, that's Call of Duty that did that, right? I don't want to talk about sports games. They've been doing it for ages, and so I don't really think you can argue that. I think Call of Duty...
But they had a model to run alongside with the season. Whereas,
exactly, yeah.
Games didn't need to until Call of Duty, I assume, 4, and then, what was it, World of War, then Modern Warfare, and so on and so forth. And then we've had one every year ever since. So
I find that amazing. I find it absolutely amazing.
Every year for 11 years.
Yeah, like that's incredible. I think that's the real success story. And I think that's why I still put it as one of the biggest games. Because...
Gotta be.
Yeah, because it's just that kind of longevity for something that's not, like you say, revolving around a season or something to... Well, it's not real, is it? And that's how, FIFA does so well and smash records again, because it's real. And people love football in the real world. I mean, war is real, yes, but not everyone's a soldier. So it's like, that doesn't work as an analogy. You know what I'm saying. Other thing I wanted to talk about is, surprise, surprise, now I think about it, Red Dead Redemption 2 comes out in 3 weeks, or 2 weeks, whatever it is. So what's Techland done? Techland updated his Facebook page to say the Call of Juarez franchise seems like it's coming back.
The franchise that nobody was asking for, Call of Juarez.
What did they write? Legends never die, right?
Who is the legend? I couldn't name one character from that franchise.
I've got it now. I looked it up. His name is Silas Greaves, and apparently
so it's not Juarez.
No, yeah. Apparently, he was the protagonist of 2013's Call of Juarez Gunslinger, which I think was the good one, right? I
don't know. People like Colin Mahern say that it's good, but honestly, when Call of Juarez, when anyone mentions it, I just glaze over, and I'm like,
what was the one? What was the last one that was an absolute joke?
Wasn't the cartel?
That was, oh my gosh, right. So, breaking all kinds of rules, I'm sure, here, but it's fine. I'm sure no one important listens to this. Call of Juarez, the cartel was so bad. Even when we saw it in preview stage, I went to a preview. This is like back in 2014, whenever it was. Even the developers like, ignore that, I'm really sorry. Oh, yeah, don't worry about that. It's just like, dude, if you're saying this now, I like the idea of Call of Juarez. I got it. I got what it was trying to do, but... And this is smart too. I mean, if Red Dead Redemption 2 comes out end of October, and by, I don't know when they release this, it'd have to be within 6 months, and they release some kind of budget Western game, it would probably do all right. It would probably get people talking. But aren't Techland about to release? Techland are the people that do the zombie game, which I like, and now I've forgotten the name of.
Yeah, they're currently pumping life into it with new DLC, and then they're doing Bad Blood, the Battle Royale thing.
Yeah, but is that all within Dying Light?
Yeah.
Because is Dying Light 2 out? It's not, is it?
No, that's coming soon. So I'm not sure why Call of Juarez is really.
That's what I mean. Why would they do that? Because Dying Light, honestly, it's not a game I personally would have played for hours, but it was far better than I expected. When I sat down and played, I was like, wow, this is actually really good. Like, they've got a good idea. The production values are quite high. You know, it kind of found a niche for itself as, what the hell was that other zombie game called that everyone
Dead
loved?
Island.
Dead Island. Dead Island 2 or 3, whichever it was, just vanished. And I felt like Dying Light pried on that perfectly. But... I can't see a release date for Dying Light 2, And I'm sure they have a big team. I'm not saying that they can't make it work, but it seems odd to me that they may, move on to something else. I mean, you can pre-order it on Argos of all things, Dying Light 2, and it tells me nothing. We don't know when this item will be released. Thanks.
Could you imagine if they put Dying Light 2 on hold for a Call of Juarez game? Like,
that's a terrible idea.
Just lose their mind.
Yeah, a terrible idea. Look, it's a smart idea. Apparently, Dying Light 2 is not out till next year. Maybe maybe 2019, just the year of Techland. I mean, is that a year that we want to see? I don't know, but it could be. I don't want to criticize it too much, but I was just intrigued because Sam mentioned that to me before we started it. I'd missed it entirely, and I don't know. But look, you may if you play Call of Juarez, let us know. Maybe we should be excited about it. We should talk about Project xCloud as well. I don't know how much you know about it, Sam. Before I
do not know it. It sounds like a cool name, though.
Well, it's Microsoft's game streaming service.
Okay.
And the whole point is this their quote, not mine. I'm not saying this. It's designed to bring console quality gaming to devices such as smartphones. Now, how they do that, obviously, how streaming works, anybody guess. But the reason I find this interesting is because it seems like a big push by people like Microsoft. Because did you see what Google was doing with Assassin's Creed last week?
No.
They were allowing people to stream it through Chrome. You could play Assassin's Creed Origins through Chrome, and it was all streamed. It wasn't like a widely publicized thing. You had to sign up to a beta or something like that, and they'd have you in. And then a week later, there's all these news about Microsoft doing it, and the idea is it's privately testing xCloud using mobile phones and tablets paired with Xbox controllers using Bluetooth via touch input over 4G and 5G as it becomes available. And that's the key to me. I didn't realize 4G and 5G were so close to being a thing. I don't really pay attention to that stuff. Yeah. And that, so Google started testing it. Microsoft's testing it now. Apparently, public trials for both are going to begin in 2019. Also, crossplay has become a big thing now. And Bethesda earlier this week was saying that they hope the new consoles, when they come out, focus on crossplay. Yeah. So I think we're kind of getting an understanding of what the new consoles are going to be. I think it's going to have a big focus on this, of streaming massively, and maybe this amazing world where third-party games no longer have any sort of true allegiances.
Yeah, I really don't. I'm not a big fan of the whole concept of streaming. I like the idea that you can do Game Pass or something where you could download it. But streaming, like in this country, if you look at places like the Nordics and Korea and stuff like that, our internet speed is shocking. Like there are a place in London, I couldn't load my Instagram stories, and I'm like, I'm in central London.
It's true.
Like,
London's really bad because you get a lot of congestion in London, and it just screws your 4G entirely.
Yeah, and the only place I could think that streaming would be actually flawless is in your home, and then what's the point? And I just can't see a future in the net, with internet as it stands, that I can play Assassin's Creed using mobile data, just actually flawlessly. I can't imagine a place where I'm playing an Xbox game on my phone. Like I'd have to be like, I've just done it in a tunnel. You know what I mean? Like. Yeah. I don't really want to be doing that either. I'd rather download it and know that I could play it flawlessly rather than be like, oh, my stream's crashed now. Oh, I'm in a boss fight. That's really annoying.
It'd be like Xbox Live when it was first born as well. Just stress and hell for 2 years until everybody gets it right. I think you're right. I like the idea of playing something in my browser from a ha-ha, lol point of view, but I don't think it's the way I want to consume my games. But I do. As soon as I started reading about this stuff, I was like, I think this is where the PS5 and the Xbox, whatever you're going to call it, I think that's where they're going to go.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're going to focus on. Or whether
if you're focusing on streaming as a console, I don't know how much you can do without the infrastructure around the internet being better. You know what I mean? Even the Wi-Fi, ours isn't up to scratch with the rest, or not the rest of the world, like the really, really good countries. So I don't know how much you could do as a bit of hardware unless you really, I don't know, unbottleneck the internet. The
actually make it work. Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea.
No, I don't know, but I'm intrigued by it, and I don't know how that's going to affect things going forward. My always worry with things like that is, it's a very selfish answer, but of course it would be, is I don't want them to spend too much time on stuff like that when I don't think I'm going to get much of a kick out of it. I'm still very much old school, where I want them to, put time and money into games and game development and things like that. I don't necessarily want them to go, because I will never appreciate like crossplay. I like it. I think it should exist, but it's not going to be. It just won't be for me. I just don't care enough, and I don't care enough about streaming. And I
don't think a lot of people care as much as they claim to, because like you can still play your games, but like, how many people are stuck in this love lost between two camps? You know what I mean? How many people are just like, oh, I've got a PS4, you've got an Xbox One, buddy, but we can't play together. Yeah, like, I don't think a lot of people care who they're playing against, but it just sounds good, doesn't it? It's just one of these things that sounds good.
Don't get me wrong. Stuff like FIFA, which you can't do it on at the moment, I'm just saying, if it did, that would be good for me, because I will buy FIFA depending on what most of my mates have it on. So if I can find a better deal on the PS4, but all my mates have got it on the Xbox One, but it doesn't matter, then yes, that actually does intrigue me. But this sounds like a very, very niche specific thing to my life. Like, I don't think that it's something. But look, we'll see. I'd be intrigued. What was the name of that streaming console that came out like 10 years ago and died? Was it the Phantom?
I don't know. I think I know what you're going on about, but I don't know.
It wasn't. The Phantom was something else. There was that box, and it tried to do streaming on the Xbox 360, and it's gone. On Live, was that it? I think
On Live,
yeah. And they must be mad now. They must be so mad. If they had just waited like 3 years, 4 years, they would have been living the dream. They got in too early. Oh,
yeah, I think it's just I think that you need because there are other streaming services around like Utomic right now, but you just need the catalogue, and you need Xbox and PS, like the heavy hitters with the loads of money to pay for the good titles. That's what you need.
Yep, I totally agree. And before we do wrap things up, there's Fallout 76 previews out, a lot of them, and every single one seems to suggest it's Fallout, but not as you know it, and everyone seems surprised, and I don't know why, because I assume they've done exactly what they did with the Elder Scrolls Online, which was kind of like the Elder Scrolls, but wasn't, because it was an MMO.
Yeah, it seems to be like what everyone expected it to be, but yeah, just Fallout Online.
Yeah, so that's what it is. So it feels like a bit open, a bit unfocused, but not in a bad way, in an intentional way. I think gameplay and mechanics sounds a lot like Fallout, but in terms of the structure, it is going to feel a bit loose and a bit open, but the clue's in the name. So I don't think I want to play it. Just interesting. I know I've said this before, but I did read them. When it comes to a game like that, when I know it's going to invest a lot of my time, and it's an MMO, which isn't really my thing, I will go out of my way to get an opinion of it. I may play it for the purposes of something like this, but in terms of my entertainment life, I don't think it's that high on my list.
Yeah, I might dabble in it, really. There's a lot of other big games coming out in the next few months, so it's not highest on my list.
No, I don't think so. I honestly think now, where we're at, it's all about Red Dead Redemption for me. I think I can, I think I can safely sit here and say that would be the only other game I play this year. Maybe, what's the stupid game coming out for Nintendo Switch at the end of the year? Not Smash Brothers.
Smash Brothers?
No, not that shit. I ain't playing that shit. No, I can't remember what it is. Anyway, I will say as well, Forza Horizon 4, actually, I meant to say this too. Fastest selling title in the series, which I found fascinating. To get to a fourth entry and have your fastest ever selling title, especially, again, Assassin's Creed didn't do as well, and I don't know what else, I don't know what Mario Party did, but I think that's actually quite impressive, to be honest. I think that goes to show that word of mouth has smashed that.
Yeah, I think so, and Game Pass as well.
Yeah, I always forget about Game Pass. Just crazy. And before we do go, you know what week it is, Sam?
Call of Duty week.
It's Call of Duty week. Now, doesn't that not feel like any hype behind it? Well, I mean, it will be. At the moment, though, I was like, oh, that's quiet, isn't it? Are you going to get it this week, is my question for you. Are you going to wait?
No, I don't care.
You don't care. All right, well, I'm going to get it. So I will talk about it next week, and I will try and either convince Sam to buy it or tell him he's made an incredibly right decision. In terms of what else is out, The World Ends With You, Final Remax. I don't know what that is, but that's out on Friday as well, too. Do you know what that is?
No.
I've looked now. It's some anime game. That sounded... I didn't mean it like that. That sounded disparaging. If you like anime, great. Or manga. I don't know which one it is. I get confused. And then, even more excitingly, Dark Souls Remastered's out in 2 weeks. Next week. I cannot wait for that. That is video content for me for about 2 years. So
on Switch.
On Switch. Bliss. And then that's it. Then we get Red Dead Redemption 2, and that's the end of the world. Yeah. What is Ride 3? So I've just seen Ride. It's just some motorbike game.
It's like Ride, but the third one.
That's what I thought. I thought it was
Tony Hawk's Ride.
That's what I thought at first. I was like, no, you can't be serious. I forgot there's a Pokemon game coming out at the end of the year as well. And Battlefield and fucking Darksiders 3. Good grief. Anyway, that's the week in gaming. I think we covered. That's the week in gaming and the week in movies. We've done it, and we are going to keep doing it. Like if you're against it, I'm sorry, but I do enjoy talking about films. I don't want to start a whole podcast. And I think with the relevant movies, like we talked about Batman, I think people would appreciate appreciate it. So hopefully I'm right again here. So we'll be back next Monday. We'll be talking Call of Duty, and I'm sure there'll be some other news that have broken by then. Although I will say this actually, just to wrap up, the end of the year so far, I think because of Red Dead Redemption, doesn't feel as crazy as it usually does. It certainly feels like a GTA year where people kind of settle down, which means January, February, March will be crazy. But yeah, this feels like a quiet season for games, which is the power of Rockstar.
We may have seen some of the spring releases coming now if it wasn't for Red Dead Redemption 2. So
yeah, I think so. Isn't that crazy? Everyone runs away from Rockstar.
Yeah.
Enjoy that in a couple of weeks. I will actually. I'm very excited about it. I think it looks brilliant. Right, anyway, that's enough of that. Sam, thanks very much for joining me as always.
My pleasure.
You're on Twitter at, right, it's Sam Bishop, 3 Ps, and there's a 1 on the end as well, correct?
Yeah.
Right, so it's Sam, BISHOPPP1. Go follow him, have a chat. Go tell him he's wrong about Zelda. You can tell me that too at Simon316. Also on Instagram at Simon316. YouTube.com/Middle Report Rules. Loads of stuff going up there at the moment because I hurt my shoulder wrestling. So I'm just working and running around because I'm an insane person. Patreon.com/Simon316 supports all of this. Even if you have $1, it really does help me out. I think that's everything. I do a wrestling podcast on Wednesdays. Come listen to that should you so wish and you like wrestling. But otherwise, keep enjoying your games. Keep enjoying life. And Sam and I will talk to you again in around about 7 days.